Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to be finishing up our special selections before moving into the last half of Old versus New starting tomorrow. Today's special selection comes at us from Gustavo Brins, and so straight and to the point that is literally just the YouTube link. I don't know why it gave me a nice little chuckle there. I've mentioned in the past how much I do like short and to the point requests. I also like the really lengthy ones as well, where there's like a ton of backstory and context. Those are really cool as well. But I don't think we've seen anybody who's just so to the point. It's like, here's the link, watch it. I love it. So Gustavo, just I love it. So what we're checking out today is Mägo de Oz with the song La Cantata Del Diablo. And just a lot of interesting things going on here with the artwork on this album cover. And the fact that it's a 21-minute song that closes out a 2005 album. A 17-song album. And this last song's 20 minutes by itself. So I guess we just gotta dive in. Let's go. Where is this song going? So we're in a nice little 6/8 feel right here. Very Renaissance style.
Sueña la vida que se ve morir, en trozos de miedo es duro vivir, sueños de muerte, desvélate, santo
Gorgeous.
auto de fe.
So we moved to 4/4 and more of a rock feel, obviously. Ooh. I like how the violin piece from the Renaissance section is in the piano right now. Well, actually it's a variation on it because we moved from 6 to 4/4. Yeah, we got that flute in here, giving it some of that folk element as well, even though we've moved into a harder rock area. Tons of these harmonies. Ooh. Little key shift there. And of course the gang vocals are moving into this very jaunty feeling song. What in the world? Very Dream Theater? Yeah, really cool rhythmic synergy there. Contrasting what was going on in the drums with the straight 16ths and the guitars. That harmonized melody line over just the straight driving pedal tones. This is a wondrous rhapsody. I can't believe we're only a quarter done with this song. I mean, where else is he going to take this? Yeah, these beautiful mergers between electric instruments and acoustic instruments and sort of modern rock and folk. I'm loving it. And his voice just perfectly matches everything that's going on, and I don't think he's got so many faces to his vocal technique. The vocal harmony. And the choir from the beginning. Those little jaunty interludes, they don't stick with. That's the second time he's moved to something like that. And immediately shifted away. And of course, bookending all that comedy with an extremely serious piano lament right here. Yeah, beautiful little ornamentations on this melody line. Move to 3 pulse. No, actually we're back to the 6 from the beginning of the track.
tus venas, desangrándome el corazón. La memoria de una mujer son los besos.
Almost has a hymn quality to it, especially with the way he's delivering those vocals.
Yo viviré y en tu olvido yo moriré. Hoy mis lágrimas se quieren suicidar, acurrucadas
shakers.
en tu piel.
That's something we don't hear too often on this channel. Nice arpeggiations in the piano. Ambient river sounds. A very complimentary vocal timbre to go along with the male vocalist prior.
Hoy mis lágrimas se quieren suicidar, acurrucadas morir en tu piel. Han nacido secas, tienen sed, mi llanto y se quiere morir. Si tus lágrimas se quieren suicidar, guárdalas, pues vas a llorar.
Oh, that's vibrato. It's so weird how naturally the song can flow from folk to like classic rock and not feel out of place at all. Yeah, just that real hard 4 on the floor going on in the drums with the bagpipe. It just makes me want to dance. What a nice harmonization of timbres there with the violin and the flute. Yeah, putting the double bass kicks against that same flute line. Ooh. Oh man, this feels very classic metal to me. know what it almost sounds like? Is some of that Maiden we checked out a couple weeks ago. Shred 24/7. 3-layer harmony. What? This is familiar. This is an homage to something, and I can't tell what it is. Back to the 6/8. There's a very strong correlation between 6/8 and non-rock, and then 4/4 and rock sections.
El fin de esta iglesia muy pronto vendrá, mi voz despertará.
And of course I say that right as we enter a non-rock section of 4/4. Interesting that the snare hits are on the offbeats though. Oh my god. That note, jeez. The song doesn't end. Oh my jeez. And a beautiful piano part that combines the violin intro and a line that the flute has played a lot throughout the song, with more of the melodic, the harmonic aspects in the left hand of the piano. What a beautiful way to wrap that up.
Padre nuestro, de todos nosotros, de los pobres, de los sin techo, de los marginados y de los desprotegidos, de los desheredados y de los dueños de la miseria, de los que te siguen y de los que en ti ya no creemos. Baja de los cielos, pues aquí está el infierno. Baja de tu trono, pues aquí hay guerras, hambre, injusticias. No hace falta que seas uno y trino. Con uno solo que tenga ganas de ayudar, nos bastaría. ¿Cuál es tu reino? ¿El Vaticano? ¿La banca? ¿La alta política? Nuestro reino es Nigeria, Etiopía, Colombia, Hiroshima. El pan nuestro de cada día son las violaciones, la violencia de género, la pederastia, las dictaduras, el cambio climático. En la tentación caigo a diario. No hay mañana en la que no esté tentado de crear a un Dios humilde, justo, un Dios que esté en la tierra, en los valles, los ríos, un Dios que viva en la lluvia, que viaje a través del viento y acaricie nuestra alma. Un Dios de los tristes, de los homosexuales, un Dios más humano, un Dios que no castigue, que enseñe, un Dios que no amenace, que proteja, que si me caigo me levante, que si me pierdo me tienda su mano, un Dios que si hierro no me culpe y que si dudo me entienda, pues para eso me dotó de inteligencia, para dudar de todo. Padre nuestro, de todos nosotros, ¿por qué nos has olvidado? Padre nuestro, ciego, sordo y desocupado, ¿por qué nos has abandonado?
And of course, after all of that, it ends like a finale to a giant epic movie with these beautiful long strings playing this massive epic song behind a speech. Oh man, what did I walk into with that one? Oh man, where do I even begin breaking this song? I don't think there is much to break down here. Would be a drastic understatement. First of all, I do want to go ahead and I'm sorry, there's very few times that a song gets me to laugh with the music, not with the lyrics or anything comical like that, but just like the raw music and the journey it takes me on. Usually I get a smirk, maybe a chuckle, but I mean, I don't know if the song is supposed to be comical. I don't know what the tone is by the lyrics or that the vocals are conveying. So I could very possibly be misreading this, but just based on the music, and its constant setting up of expectations and pulling the rug out from under you, it's just, oh man, the song comes off to me as comedic because the language that I speak with it, the musical language, feels very comedic to me. So I apologize if this is supposed to be a serious song and it looks like I'm laughing through something that is supposed to be taken quite seriously. I okay. Let's get into this analysis. So there's a lot going on here, and before I really get into anything, I do want to make some observations about how this reminds me a lot of a Devin Townsend song that we checked out a while ago called The Mighty Masturbator. And in that song, I had mentioned something along the lines that there isn't really much that I can say about the song because it seems to have been a song written by Devin for Devin. Maybe not necessarily that he needed to well, maybe not necessarily that he wrote it for himself, but that he wrote it to get it out of his system. Maybe he wrote it as a thesis statement for the way that he feels about his music, or basically just a combining of everything he's ever done, anything he's ever wanted to write into a piece that combines every aspect of him, sort of a very broad vertical slice of what Devin is all about. And in that idea, I can see a lot that parallels with this. This song goes everywhere. And there do seem to be some very serious aspects to it, and there's some comedic aspects, and there's a lot of portions of the song that don't really seem to match with anything else that came before it or anything that came after it, and it really marches to the beat of its own drums. And in that sense, it could very well be the culmination of what this band or this person, I'm not sure if this is a single album, something like a Steven Wilson or a Devin Townsend or a Zappa, Frank Zappa, or if this is a group. But it seems to hit on a lot of ideas, a lot of influences. There's a few homages in here that at least I heard, to prominent 70s, 80s, 90s music, mixed with a lot of folk and even some classical. It really is all over the place, and it feels very much like a thesis statement for this person or this band. It's a culmination of every influence that this band, every influential band or music or style of music or anything that's really influenced the band members, and put it all into a single song and tried their best to make it as cohesive as they could. Sometimes that didn't always work. Sometimes it very much does replicate those that influences it and just mashes items together, which is something that I've mentioned before about Dream Theater, is that they don't always have the best transitions. Sometimes they really are just mashing ideas together, and that happens here too. And it could just be about wearing your inspirations on their sleeves and replicating their idols, or those that affect how they write their music, influence them. So it very much to me is in that vein. This is us. Right? If you want to get a taste of our kind of music, this is the song you should listen to. If you like any piece of this, you might find another song of ours that you'll enjoy, but this is us. This is everything we do. That's kind of what I see this song as. Very much like that Devin track. So let's break this down a little bit. Let's get into some stuff. It's 20 minutes of music. I'm not going to be able to touch on everything as is normal with these longer tracks. It is incredibly dense, incredibly long. There's going to be a lot of stuff I forget or gloss over. And we're going to be looking at some more higher level ideas instead of some of the more gritty nuance, just because, like I said, I am going to forget about some of the smaller details in lieu of some of the larger ideas that stuck with me. So one thing that's quite obvious is the breadth of their influences, or another way to say it is the amount of ideas that they've crammed into a single song. We have classical, we have folk, we have classic rock, we have some classic metal, we have some prog, we have hymn work. That's not how you count to 6. There's some hymn ideas in here. There's bagpipes. There's some like sea time jaunty kind of stuff going on as well. And I'm sure there's 2 more that I've just forgot. There's at least 10 ideas going on in here. And there's plenty of homages too. One that really stuck out to me. Well, first of all, Dream Theater at the beginning. There is a section where the drums were really laying down 2 and 4. Bass kicks were doing 8th notes. The bass player was doing 8th notes on the root of the chords, and it just had this strong Dream Theater driving force to it that we've seen in all of the Dream Theater songs we've checked out. There's always this section. To me, it is the quintessential Dream Theater section, other than their keyboard work, their synth work. This section, whenever I hear it, the first thing I think of is Dream Theater. There's a section way into the song with solos. We had the battling solos that eventually came in to harmonize on each other. That was a very 90s thing, is kind of what I'm getting out of that. Maybe earlier, maybe more into the 70s, the start of metal, classic metal. They might have started that, but I kind of associate that with some 90s metal. But right after that, there was a very clear Iron Maiden section, and the only reason I could think of that is because it reminds me of Iron Maiden. We just checked out Iron Maiden, and it was just very clearly, my brain went straight to that. Hey, that sounds like something we just checked out recently. And then there was that one riff. I don't know what it was, but as soon as I heard it, I was like, this is an homage to a specific section. It's probably a very popular riff, a well-known riff to a specific song. And I just don't remember which one it is. But yeah, that. And then, of course, there's the inspirations of the hymns. There's a few sections in here that are very hymn-like, both in their writing with the music and then the way that they're vocally portrayed, usually with a group of people all singing the same note. And although I guess that's more of a, not as much an homage, more of a inspiration, I guess you could say. But I'm sure there's a ton I missed. This song seems to be going on between even maybe specific songs that they really enjoyed and sort of snuck into their own writing. I'm sure somebody who is maybe has listened to metal through the years and is more familiar with some of the more popular tracks and maybe some of the less popular tracks, they're going to hear a lot more of that, those little Easter eggs in this song. So yeah, that to me is kind of interesting, that there's so many moments in here that I could reflect back and point to a specific band or a specific song on. They also have this thing where they are folk metal, but it's not folk metal like we've checked out in the past with stuff like Illuvite. They do incorporate some folk music and folk instruments into a prog rock sound, but it's not necessarily combining the two ideas. They often are separated. We have folky, classical, acoustic areas, and then we have the rock and metal sections, and they're pretty well divided. There is some crossover. There's a couple of sections where a flute or a violin will play during one of the heavier, faster rock sections, but for the most part, they're kept separated. And it's this constant bouncing back and forth, which also brings a bouncing back and forth of time signature. For whatever reason, the folkier stuff, especially when they enter into more of a Renaissance sound, it sticks in 6/8, but that 6/8 is so rarely heard in the rock sections. And maybe it is because, again, wearing inspirations on their sleeves, a lot of the rock stuff they're emulating is from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and a lot of that metal was sticking with the 4/4. Even when we listened to prog rock of the 70s, a lot of it is experimentation with sound, not so much experimentation with time. Experimenting with time I sort of associate with modern prog stuff, especially prog metal, your Between the Buried and Me's, and Tool. But the older prog stuff really didn't play around with time signature as much, at least from what I've listened to in my little exposure to that time period. So it kind of makes sense that if they are mimicking or being inspired by or paying homage to these specific time frames of these specific eras of metal, that 4/4 would be the dominant time of the metal, but it is, or of the rock and metal sections. But I do find it interesting that it is so often juxtaposed with a 6/8 feel in almost any time that the electric instruments duck out. Going along with this versatility, though, the vocal diversity. I really enjoyed having the female vocalist come in the middle. I mentioned that her vocals complemented the male vocals very well, and I felt very justified when they harmonized a section later, and it was gorgeous. Just worked really well, and I'm glad I got to hear that, because I could hear how their timbres matched at the point she came in, but we hadn't had the harmonization yet, and yeah, just sounded gorgeous. But both her and the male vocalist had multiple vocal deliveries. They have sort of this softer, semi-spoken singing. They have their bravado, very rock-sounding singing. They can put a little bit of distortion in their higher end and get that beltiness. And there was one point, I think, where there was some really wide vibrato applied to, I think it was the female vocals, when she was harmonizing above the male. She had some very wide vibrato on it. Very reminiscent of that was it Iron Maiden that I made that comment on? Or Judas Priest? I don't remember. One of the two singers, though, I mentioned that it was sort of a key aspect of their singing was these very wide vibratos. And yeah, I mean, that showed up a couple times here too. So, yeah, just the vocal delivery diversity is just constantly keeping me on my toes. How are they going to sing this part? It was something that was going through my head. And I just love that. But again, it's just the diversity as a whole. The number of timbres they have in here. First of all the instruments, right? We have really strong writing for flutes, violins, pianos, guitars, drums, vocals, two kinds of vocals, male and female. And I'm sure there's some instruments that might have popped up for just a few moments and I've completely forgotten about. Bagpipe. Yeah, there's one that I almost forgot. So many different timbres, though. And this was something I've mentioned a while ago. I don't remember what we were talking about, but I said one of the problems, not a problem, but one of the things that I tend to dislike about rock and metal is just the very small number of timbres. You usually have your two guitarists. They might have their own tones. And then your bass, which is going to have a similar timbre, but a bit different than your guitars. Your drums are their own kind of thing. They make the sound that you hit on them. They're not pitched, or you can't change the pitch on them. And then your vocalist, which is going to have a timbre. And that's honestly 3, 4 if you want to count the two guitar tones as different timbres, which technically they are, but they're also extremely similar. And that's just not a lot. And especially when you get a song like this and we're moving into, 15, 16, 17 different sounds. And it is just, I love the way that they can play around with stuff like this, because we end up seeing ideas like the opening violin part being transposed into a piano part when the rock section comes in a couple minutes later. And they get to continue this idea and show variation on this idea. And that theme pops up all throughout the song. Even at the very end, we get that super serious piano bit, and they took that opening violin, I think it was violin, maybe it was the flute line. They take that opening melody line, though, and put it into a piano and do it with triplets. So instead of just holding out these quarter notes, you have these arpeggiations on top of it, where the note that the flute played is going to be the root, and then you arpeggiate on top of that. So the downbeats are still playing that same melody, but you're getting all this flourish with it, right? And it sounds more technical, it sounds more complex, and more serious. And yeah, just taking this one idea and allowing it to transform and metamorphosize over this song and show up in so many different styles and voices with little changes to them that help with the that change with the instruments. Like I mentioned, the flute played it straight, the piano played it with arpeggiations. Also, the piano played it with a chordal accompaniment because there's a second hand on it. If a guitar played it, they might have thrown in some shred, some 16th notes alongside it. It's just that it's allowed to adapt to each of the sections, and it shows up all over the place, and I love that. Taking a theme, giving a song a theme, and allowing it to evolve and have variation throughout the track, and just sort of pop up like an Easter egg. Every time a section comes up, you're like, all right, where's that melody line? Where's it going to show up this time? What instrument's going to have it? What kind of variation is going to be done on it? So that's really cool. It doesn't show up in every section, but it does show up often enough that I'd say look out for it. If you're going to revisit the song, look out for it. It shows up in some of the most unique places. They also have this idea of juxtaposing ridiculous sections with the super serious piano or string sections that really bring down a lot of the comedy and energy and provide weight to the song. And I think that's interesting. I don't know what it has to do with anything. It could just be that the song's designed to be fun and have these varying dynamics in that way of sort of dynamic weight, I guess you could call it. Some songs or some sections just feel lighter and funner and more lighthearted, and others just feel a bit more serious. And again, it's just the way that they write this song. But I think the biggest thing that's going to stick with me, what I mentioned earlier, is just their ability to set up an expectation and then not only not deliver on it, but deliver on something completely different. Not even the opposite, because the opposite could also be expected in some ways, but just something that makes no sense. Like those little sea jaunties. They don't show up for very long. 4 bars, 8 bars maybe at the top, I think, was one of the longest sections of those was 8 bars. They don't really belong in the song. They don't fit the folk/rock elements that sort of pervade most of the track. They're very much outliers, both in length and in typing. It's just a very different type of music, but it shows up just long enough to be like, wait, what? And then it's gone for something that fits more in line with what's going on with the song. And it's those little moments of wait, what, how, why, that really kept me engaged and kept my interest going and gave me those chuckles, the things that I just least expect. It's a sort of musical absurdist comedy, I suppose you could call it. And I love absurdist comedy to begin with. It is probably one of my favorite comedy styles. And this is just my type of musical jokes, I suppose you could say. It seems handcrafted for me. I could not stop. I could not get rid of the smile on my face. I could not stop giggling, laughing. I think one part even brought me to like tears. I was laughing so hard my eyes were watering. And yeah, it is a wild trip of a song. And I adore it for that. Now, I have no idea what any of this means. Like I said, my theory is that this is sort of a thesis song, sort of a vertical slice of who this band is. Everything that they do, all their inspirations, and also little homages to the bands that they love, all crammed into a single, ridiculously long rhapsody. But I suppose it also could just be a very cohesive track with lyrics that tie it all together and bring together a specific theme, and all of these sharp changes all tie into that vocal theme as well. And unfortunately, that's not something I am going to be able to dig into in this video. It's already long enough as it is, and I would need to find a translation and then hope that, like with yesterday, that the lyrics are rather on the nose, because as I mentioned yesterday, poetic analysis is not something I can do on the fly like I do with musical analysis. So if anybody knows what's going on in this song, or have listened to interviews or anything like that, and please leave me a comment. Let me know what's actually going on here. Let me know if I'm close. Is this just a song that's supposed to be fun? Is it a song that's more of a way of showing respect to those who have inspired them, or if this is some sort of vertical slice, a thesis statement of who they are as a band? Let me know what's up with this song. Really, honestly. Because I'm very intrigued. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this analysis, it comes off to me as a comedy song. But that is only from the musical perspective. Maybe once the lyrics are added in, I can see it's actually more of a serious song, and my interpretation of it can be changed a little bit. Also, if you have any comments about the song, if you enjoyed it, if you've heard of them before and know another song that I should be looking at, maybe if you've never heard of them before and you're going to do a deep dive on their discography just because of this video, go ahead and leave those comments down there. Above the comment section, you can head to the description box. There's a link in there for Linktree. It's a really nifty website that pulls together a menu of all the links adjacent to this channel. You can look at future special selections. You can submit your own special selection. You can join the Discord. You can follow me on Twitter. You can help support the channel through Patreon, and many more links are in there. It's a really nice, well put together, nifty little tool, and I love it. Above that, we can like, subscribe, ring the bell. All three things help out the channel immensely. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. We're going to finish up Old versus New Week, looking at the last two bands from that theme, checking out an earlier song in their career and a later song in their career, and doing some comparing and contrasting, and looking at how the bands have evolved throughout their career as artists. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.